the Lakers won, it was like, here we go again. I got my hands more than full with trying to guard Shaquille O'Neil.
Welcome to Canada's Court. Today, as we get ready to watch an exciting Olympic Games for Canada basketball, we talked to a man who played for the team the last time the Canadian men's squad was at the Olympics. Todd MacCulloch was a key part of the 2000 team that went to Australia and finished 7th. He also played a few years in the NBA before retiring due to injury and went on to become a pinball wizard. Todd MacCulloch has kindly agreed to chat with me today. Todd, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here with you today.
What's it like to get to see Canada finally going back to the Olympics after you were there 24 years ago?
It's great. I can't believe 24 years have passed since I played it. In some ways, it seems like yesterday, and in some ways, it seems like a lifetime ago. But I'm thrilled that Canada's national team is that they're back, and they're. It's gonna be a lot of fun. There's so much talent and high expectations based on how well the World Cup went.
Yeah, let's. You said it feels like yesterday that you were there, so we'll see how good your recollection is. Obviously, going to the Olympics is such a special experience for any athlete. What kind of stands out to you from your time when you went to Australia?
It was just kind of a dream come true. I think, growing up in Winnipeg, I think maybe I was the third person to go straight to D1, and so it seemed like the NBA there wasn't a huge path from, say, Manitoba to the NBA. So my goals were to try and make it to the Olympics. I thought that was something possible. I thought I could make the national team, and I thought I could help the national team get back to the Olympics. So ever since someone, sat me down and said, "What are your goals?" That's something that I thought I could make the team, and I thought I could help. And we were able to do it. We had great leadership with Jay Triano, who had been there, played in '84 and played in '88, knew what it took to get there, knew what it took to do well when you got there. Preparation, practice, mental preparation, all of those things. And so it was a great experience, great coach, great teammates. Anytime you get to step on the court with Steve Nash and he's on your side, that's a good day. As a big man, he just makes your life so much fun, and he really makes the game easier for everybody. Just elevated it. So having him on the squad helped immensely for sure.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go on, but you played with some pretty spectacular guards over your career. But tell me a bit about what it was like having Steve Nash both, as a teammate and a competitor in that Olympics. What was that experience like?
Well, he was just so confident in the best sort of way, without being overconfident, just believing in the work that he put in and his skills, his belief in us to. He's going to get us open shots. Just knock him down. You guys got this. I'm going to, he wouldn't even have to say it. You would just know he would dribble right at my defender, draw him off, hand me the ball, and all I got to do is lay it up. So, you'd think the game would get more complicated at a high level like this. But the game with someone like that, kind of pulling the strings and playing chess, it actually really simplifies the game. And so we felt confident going in that we could, try and make the country proud, and I think we did. I think we got the country really excited about Canadian basketball, and we, beating Australia in Australia, I think kind of set the tone for the way we started off that tournament, and even in the tournament, leading up to the Olympics, having somebody like Nash there that just reveled in the pressure. I mean, they just Puerto Rico in the qualifying game decided to press us. And Steve lit up. Like most people, they get worried or they get pressured, and he was like, "Oh, they're screwed. If they're pressing, we're getting layups." Like that's just to have somebody like that in your corner just gave us all confidence that we could be successful, make the Olympics, and then make some noise when we got there.
Did you? Because this was before Steve Nash had won his 2 MVPs in the NBA. Could you tell at that point that this guy's one of the best in the league?
We knew he was great. We knew he was, all-star. caliber. We knew he was one of the best guards in the league. I don't know if we knew that he was a two-time MVP. We were certainly proud of him, and we all felt like he definitely deserved that. But as good as he was, he just got better all the time. He always learned and improved. So we knew he was great. I don't know if we knew that he was a two-time MVP great at that time, and we were certainly glad to have him, really running the show for us.
You mentioned the high expectations for the men's team coming up in this Olympics. What were the expectations like back in 2000? Canada wasn't really quite the same basketball country that it is now.
I think the goal was to get there, and then you get there in 1999, and that was the goal of that summer. And then when you do that, now you have a whole year to prepare. Let's not just go to the Olympics. Let's not just walk in the opening ceremonies and play these games. Let's go there with the intention to medal. And so we were on the other side of the bracket from the U.S. team, which was the favorite to win, and ultimately did end up winning the gold in that Olympics. 6 teams on each side, and so we don't want to finish 6th. We'd be out of pool play. 5th is out. 4th is essentially out because we assumed that the U.S. would finish first, so we didn't want to be 4th. So 1st, 2nd, or 3rd is what we were looking at, and so we took care of business against Australia, did well against Spain, and then stumbled a little bit against Russia, and all of a sudden we were playing Yugoslavia. And if we lose that game, then we finish 4th, and we cross over against the U.S. team. If we beat Yugoslavia, which I don't think a lot of people thought Canada could do at that time, and we were able to do it, finish first in the pool, and then went up against a really tough French team that eventually ended up with the silver. So we were, about 5 points away from making it to the medal round and fighting for one of those medals. So our expectations were that we felt like we could medal. I still feel like we could have if things had gone a little bit differently. We finished with a record of 5-2. That's the same record that France had. 5-2 with the silver. Australia got the bronze. We beat them head to head. So we were definitely, in my mind, we were one of the top 4 teams in that Olympics, and we don't have the medal to prove it, but we were right there with the top teams in the world at that time.
You mentioned that France game you guys lost. I think it was 68-63 or 68-62. You had a dominant game that game. You had 23 points, 9 of 11 from the field, 9 rebounds. What was it like to, be in – obviously the result wasn't what you hoped for, but to be in such a huge moment in your basketball career and have such a strong and important game?
I definitely wanted to do my best, and I have to give Steve so much credit. I would guarantee that he would have assisted on all 9 of those baskets and really did the work for me by penetrating, drawing my defender, and handing it to me. So he, I just had to put the cherry on top of the Sunday that he prepared, and so I was glad that I was able to play well when the team needed me, and I wish we could have gotten over the top. The French team was very good then. The French team is very good now, and you see it with this recent draft. The top couple of picks coming out of France, and it's a very good basketball nation, and they were a tough opponent, and they had it on that day.
Now, you must have thought, coming out of the Olympics, still not the result you were hoping for, but a very strong result, as you said, 5-2, as good as some of the teams that medaled. You must have thought, okay, like this is the beginning of something, but then, we got this drought. What was it like to kind of, not see it progress further than that?
It was a little bit disappointing. Canada definitely got some momentum going, and the Raptors were doing well in Toronto, and it seemed like the country was kind of, waking up to what a great game basketball is and making kids want to play it and get involved at a grassroots level. It seemed like Canada had some momentum going forward, and personally, my injuries started, and I wasn't able to continue, with the program and with the game, and so. Canada came pretty close. I mean, there were some games there where I think they just needed to maybe win one more game to qualify, and so it's. I think people are surprised to at least when I played, only 12 teams make it, and so everyone just kind of thinks the Olympics everybody gets a shot, and it's tough to even qualify and just to get a spot. So I think that's. You can see that by how long it's taken for Canada to get back there, just how challenging it is to get one of those spots. And then when you get there, you want to take advantage of it. And I think this year's squad's got a great chance to make some noise in Paris.
All right, let's talk a bit about your career now. Growing up, you were certainly tall and very talented, but did you ever really think, did you ever like, because, growing up in Winnipeg, you don't see the NBA. Maybe I don't even know, probably when you were growing up, they didn't even have the Raptors quite yet. Um, did you ever see that as a possibility for yourself that you would play professional basketball?
I thought I would probably play professionally in Europe. I started playing with the junior national team, I think, when I was, 17 or 18. And then you start to meet some of the older guys. There wasn't a lot of NBA presence in Canada at that time. But there was a lot of professional players, guys that played in Switzerland, guys that played in France and Germany and Belgium and Australia, leagues, Division 1, 2, and 3. So it seemed to me that there were a lot of opportunities in a lot of different countries. So I thought, one of these countries, one of these leagues, I'll be able to play professionally. So I did feel like I could play professionally. The NBA, to me, I didn't think was very realistic as a goal, but I just wanted to get better, and I think it really helped me to play for Canada's national team in the summer. It helped me in my collegiate career, and I think my playing collegiately at a high level in what was the Pac-10 helped prepare me for international basketball each summer. So I was basically playing basketball all year round, and the season made me better for Canada, and Canada made me better for the team I was playing on. And so I wasn't sure that the NBA was going to be a reality for me, but I think it was probably the game that I had against the United States in qualifying for trying to get the spot in Sydney. I think we lost the game by 28, but I think I had 22 and 16 against the Dream Team, and that was Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan and some very, very good centers. And Coach Larry Brown was the coach of the Dream Team that summer. Coach the Sixers had drafted me the previous month, and so I'm not sure that he had seen me up close before that game, and I think that might have helped me secure a spot on the 15-man roster for the Sixers and kind of change the course of my professional trajectory. So that made my NBA dreams come true. I think having that game against those guys in front of Coach Brown turned out to be a good thing.
So yeah, you were drafted in 1999, 47th overall. I feel like today with social media and the way the internet is, that people have a better idea, beforehand what the NBA is like and what the NBA lifestyle is like. Did you what was that like for you? Did you have an idea of what to expect before you got drafted?
Just a little bit, just from Nash. Having played with him on the international scene with Team Canada, just asking him questions and being around him and asking him what his experience was like. And when I became a free agent after 2 years with Philadelphia, I had the opportunity to potentially sign with the New Jersey Nets, and they had made moves to acquire Jason Kidd. I knew that Steve and Jason had been teammates before. And either just after I signed or was planning to, I asked Steve Nash. I said, what's it going to be like for me playing with Jason Kidd? And Steve, in his humble way, said, "Imagine playing with a way better version of me." And I thought, well, if that's true, I'm going to like it because I love playing with Steve. And if Steve feels like Jason Kidd is some kind of an upgrade, then that's somebody that I want to be on the court with. And Jason Kidd was a phenomenal teammate and a phenomenal player, and was just a joy to play with. So I kind of looked to Steve as a mentor to be able to help, because he had already been in the league for a couple of years by the time I got drafted.
I do have another question about playing with Steve Nash. One of the things you've probably seen reports about is, like, I remember sometimes someone did a study about how many times Steve Nash would, like, high five or give a fist bump or whatever to his teammates, and it was like some sort of insane amount that he would high five his teammates. Is that something you noticed, or is it just he made it so natural that you'd only know if you were looking at it?
It doesn't. That doesn't surprise me at all. I wasn't aware of that. Someone going back and maybe figuring out that ratio. But now that you say it, in my mind, I can picture him always uplifting, always positively. Whether it was something physical like a handshake or a fist bump or whatever. That doesn't surprise me at all. He was always picking people up, and whatever he could do to get the energy up and make you believe that you were a good player. That's a pretty cool statistic that I was kind of unaware of. But now that you mention it, I can see lots of instances of him just whether it's coming into a timeout, coming out of a timeout, just when we need a little bit extra, he would be right there, and it would always be in a positive way, and he would make guys believe that we could do it, get it done, and then that belief went a long way with him sort of leading the way. We believed that he believed, and we just followed suit.
So getting drafted by the 76ers, you got to play with another legendary guard in the NBA, Allen Iverson. You played with him during his MVP season even. Tell me a bit about what that was like. Obviously a different experience than playing with Steve Nash, like a guard like that, but still a very incredibly talented player.
Yes, Iverson was very, very special. Just an incredible talent, and could do anything with the ball. He could get by anybody. He had such a quick first step, and he could draw a double team and score on both of them. And he just had such a nice touch around the rim, and he knew all of the spins. I mean, his whole life he'd been playing against most of the players he'd playing against were taller than him. And as a scorer, he figured out how to score on those people. Do I need to shoot a floater over them? Do I need to go under them? Do I need to go around the rim and use it as a protector? And he just had, the perfect spin, and he knew his awareness of where he was on the court, and he could be going a million miles an hour, but then he would take all of the speed off the ball and just have it deaden on the backboard. So I guess what I'm saying is, if I happen to be standing there in a rebounding position, wide open, no one boxing me out, because my help has gone to Iverson, who's driven past his man, unable to block him because he was so crafty and he could see it coming from a mile away. If he happened to miss, it was a soft miss. It was never a clank. It was sitting right there, and I could get it and lay it in. Or if he got up in the air, he had such good hang time, he had a lot of time to look for options and ways to score. And if they weren't there, then he would just drop it down to me, and then my defender is out of the picture, and I could just lay it in. So he was, such a fighter, such a warrior, and he did a good job at the free throw line and was able to seal games. So I feel like that year with Philadelphia, we might have led the league in wins that were 1, 2, or 3 points. So really close games. We put the ball in his hands, and he delivered with clutch shots and clutch plays. So it was really fun to be on the court with him, just because he was so good, and it was hard to keep up with him because he was so fast.
I heard he said something kind of funny about your hands. Could you tell me a bit about what that was?
He paid me a compliment by saying, you don't have any bones in your hands. So he was paying me a compliment to my ability to catch the ball, and so I that made me really happy to know that he believed in my ability to catch it, and he felt confident giving it to me. And his recollection was there must be no bones in my hands, and it's just all flesh, or sort of suction cups. And so I thought that was a really nice compliment he paid to me, that he had the confidence to, if he gave the ball to me, I took extra special care. I was like, all points are the same, but when Allen passed it to me, I definitely wanted to make sure that I did not drop the ball, and I wanted to convert because I wanted him to pass it to me again. So that was a nice thing that he said.
That had to be such an important skill for you. You mentioned playing with Steve Nash, playing with Allen Iverson, playing with Jason Kidd, all guys who could get you the ball in such a great way. Really important, I imagine, then for you to be able to catch those passes on a consistent basis and not be dropping it.
I think for me it was very important, and that may have been something that Rod Thorne had seen in my game, knowing that he had already made the trade to acquire Jason Kidd. I'm guessing he thought he needed a center that was going to be able to catch these passes on the receiving end, and that was something that I was known for, was being able to catch it, sort of understanding spacing, and just being able to move and get open. And I think probably playing volleyball helped a lot. I think there's a lot of big guys, either just through instinct or what they're taught. They get the ball, and some coaches will teach them to go up strong, and of course you want to do that, but that usually involves gathering yourself, going down, and going up and being explosive. But anytime you bring the ball down, that's when the guards are chomping at the bit. They just want to steal it. And I got tired of, Bryant Boston was a guard at Washington who was very, he was great at stealing the ball. And so my freshman redshirt year, when I was really learning, I decided I'm never bringing the ball down again, because every time I do, Bryant will take it from me. And if I kept it up, he can't get to it. And so in volleyball, you get comfortable, even though I wasn't a setter, I was a middle hitter, a middle blocker. You get comfortable with your hands above your head. And in basketball, that can sometimes put you in a vulnerable position. In volleyball, there's no worry because no one's coming in contact with you. But there were often times when I would catch the ball off an offensive rebound, instead of bringing it down where guards can get it, sometimes I would just set it, two-handed back into the basket. And so I think feeling vulnerable and feeling unnatural, and you almost feel weak. I would catch the ball and I wouldn't go up very strong. I would just come back, gather myself a little bit, and just kind of go off my tiptoes. I wouldn't get much height. I didn't need much height. And so that skill, that very basic skill, I was able to carry through and have success with throughout my career, even at the highest level. And I think that's somewhat uncommon for big men to be able to almost set the basketball back into the hoop.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You as you started getting minutes pretty quickly after you got drafted, which I think is a little bit, these days with the G League and stuff like that, a lot of second round picks end up having to go there, and if not, they don't really get any NBA minutes. But you right away were getting some floor time. Were you surprised with kind of how quickly you were able to get onto the court like that?
Yeah, surprised and very happy with it. As a second round pick, I wasn't even sure I was going to make the team. And if I did make the roster, you only got 12 guys in uniform. And then you had 13, 14, 15 men that were sort of on the inactive list or the injured reserve. And I thought maybe I would end up there. And fortunately, I ended up as, one of the 12 that would dress for most of those games. And we had a kind of a rotation of five big men, seven people on the guard forward side, and then five people in like the 4 or 5 spot. And I was somewhere in the fourth, fifth in the rotation. And with the three, two, we had our two starters at the 4 and 5 spot, and then the third big would rotate for whichever one of them got into foul trouble. Well, 2 of those 3 guys sustained injuries throughout that season. And so there were opportunities for the 4th and 5th big man, myself and Nazir Mohammed, to get some minutes. And I think I showed an ability to be able to catch the ball and be able to finish and be able to plug some of those holes, in the maybe in the second quarter at the end of the half, just go and give those guys a rest a little bit, and then you do good things in those minutes, and you earn more time, you earn more trust from the coaches, from the assistant coaches that have kind of stuck their neck out for you, saying, hey, put Todd in the game. I've been working with him in practice, and I think he's ready. And then the coach sees that you were right, your guy was ready, and then he's more likely to put you in the next game. So I got enough minutes to to be selected to the rookie game. They sort of stopped doing the senior game at the All-Star weekend, and they did rookies versus sophomores, and somehow out of 60 draft picks, 30 of them in the first round and 30 in the second round, I was one of 8 that were selected to play in the rookie game, which was a huge honor and a big surprise to be the only second round pick to play with those guys. And so I was a little surprised to get the minutes early, but I feel like I was ready and prepared when my number was called.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get that without earning it. So, I mean, I think that says a lot about where you were at with your game. Let's talk a bit about the 2001 trip to the NBA Finals. What do you remember from that finals run? I know you even ended up having to come through Canada to get there. What was that experience like?
That was thrilling. I got to the Sixers in '99, and that first season we made it to the playoffs. We won the first round, and then we faced a really tough Indiana Pacers team with Reggie Miller, and ultimately they defeated us. And I pretty sure they defeated the Sixers the year before I got there. So Iverson was getting really tired of losing to the Pacers. In my second year, once again, now we face the Pacers, but this time it's in the first round. Back then, the first round was best of 5. And, because Reggie Miller was, such a veteran, he didn't care that they were an 8th seed. He believed that they could be one of the teams to knock off a 1. And it was easier to do in a best of 5 than it is in a best of 7. So they take game 1. Iverson wasn't having that, so we tied it up at 1-1, went to Indiana, lost the first one, down 2-1, tied up 2-2, and home court really came in handy in that series, and came home, and Iverson was not going to lose on our home court against Reggie Miller again. And so we were victorious, and then we had that amazing series against the Toronto Raptors, and that came down to Vince Carter's final shot. Once again, a home court, Game 7, so that was a crazy series. Iverson, I think, had 50 in game one, and then Vince had 50 in game two, and then I think Iverson had 50 in game three, and that was an amazing series. And then a very good Milwaukee Bucks team, and that series also went seven, and we won at home. And now you go up against a Lakers team that swept the first round, swept the second round, swept the third round, and were the defending champs. And so we knew that it was going to be a tough task, and we won game one down there with Iverson having 48 points and taking us to overtime. And I think that surprised a lot of people. I think it also might have woken the Lakers up a little bit if they hadn't been taking us seriously. I think they did at that point. And then I've gone back and I've been watching some of those games. So even though they rattled off 4 straight wins and they won 4-1, game two, I think we were down 2 points with a minute and a half left, and game three was within a couple points with a few minutes left. So I think that series was a lot closer than the 4-1 final score in the record books.
What was that experience for you like? I mean, having to come in, you'd have to face it even more the next year, but having to go up against a player like Shaquille O'Neil, I imagine that you ended the series with a couple of bruises or so after that.
Yeah, probably. It was just it was a great opportunity. I mean, no one really expected anything out of me, and so when I went in, I was a second year player. I'm young, I'm fresh, and didn't have any injuries. So I got in the game, and I just realized I was going to give the ultimate effort. I was going to run the court really hard. Shaq's been playing now for probably a quarter and a half. He might be a little bit tired and fatigued. I'm fresh. I'm gonna bust my butt. I'm gonna try and outrun him. I think Shaq had 8 blocks in the game. I think when I went back and watched it, 4 of them were against me, but at least 2 of them, instead of hanging my head, I caught the block shot and went right back up with it the same way I described. So instead of just being afraid, I continued to try and attack. And he's a great player offensively. He's a great player defensively. He blocked me a couple times. I tried to make the most of it, go right back up with it. Tried to get some hustle points by just getting down the court as quickly as I could and being available. And so we won game one, and I think that that surprised some people. And I was, in my head, I'm thinking if we just take care of the home court, back then it was 2-3-2. But then beating the LA Lakers 3 times in a row at home is no easy task. So it was a great series. They were one of the great teams in NBA history, and people still talk about that dynamic duo. And the supporting cast was pretty amazing. So big. For the Sixers to have not been back since 2001 just tells me how special that team was, how rare it is to go that far, and how proud I am to have been a part of a team that's remembered very fondly by Philadelphia sports fans.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, I think, about Philadelphia sports fans. They kind of sometimes get a bad rap, but it sounds like your experience there was fairly positive.
Yeah, they were very passionate, and they really cared, and I think during that playoff run, I think we might have been on 30 or 40 newspaper covers every day. And I remember the weatherman saying on days when it's 50 degrees, the Sixers win. Like there was some sort of Sixer tie-in to everything, and not pop culture, but in everything in the daily news in Philadelphia was all tied into the energy and how much that city was behind us and how much they wanted a championship. And I hope they're able to get back there again soon.
Then the next season, you sign with New Jersey, and your role expands even more. You're a starting center. You're playing a lot of minutes. You get back to the finals. There's got to be a bit of like oh man, not these guys again. Like that's a tough team.
Yeah, I do remember. We had clinched the Eastern Conference Championship against Boston and knew that we were going. And Shaq and Kobe are playing Sacramento, and I think that our Boston series went 6 games, and their series I think it went 7. So I remember watching that game, kind of hoping for Sacramento. As good as that team was, it's just a little different matchup at the center position. And so when the Lakers won, it was like, here we go again. I got my hands more than full with trying to guard Shaquille O'Neil.
What was the scouting report like for that? Because there's just he's just so powerful, and I watched a little bit of some of the games, and from my perspective, you're defending him well, you're keeping him away from the basket, and yet he hits a tough hook shot, or he just powers right through. What was that experience like from a kind of strategic standpoint?
Yeah, you do the best you can. We had a bunch of big men, trying to slow him down, trying to push him out as much as possible. When I went back and watched those games, he was full on with his hook shot, and it seemed to me that he had been able to extend his range and hit from deeper. And I think he shot 74% from the free throw line in that series, so it seemed like he didn't have any. There was really no way to stop him if he's making 3 out of 4 free throws, and if he's close to the basket, he's dunking it. If you push him out, if he's in the middle of the key, he's hitting that long range jump hook. So very very unstoppable, and obviously very very. They'd had a lot of success, and they'd won 2 championships already, and they went into that season with a goal: we need to win this again. So they had a very single focus, and they were able to execute it. And I think the closest we came was one of those games. I think we lost by 3 points, and some of them were double digits. And so we had a hard time keeping up with that Laker team. That was a very special squad.
Do you ever think back to the fact that, if it wasn't for this kind of like once in a lifetime duo, really, like if it wasn't for the fact that 2 of the best players in the league ended up teaming up and on the same team, you were that close to an NBA championship?
Yeah, it would have been. I got there twice. It would have been nice to have won at least one of them. But I also am very happy that I was able to at least play at that level. And I look at the Buffalo Bills that lost 4 in a row. I think I was at some point I was wondering how many I got. I mean, I luckily made it to 2 finals. I lost both of them. Who was the player that made it to the most finals without winning one? And I thought I would be sort of towards the top of that list. And surprisingly, I don't remember who was on it, but there were a number of people that had made it several times to the finals without a championship. So I would have loved to have won one, but at the same time, playing against a team like that, they were the best during that year. They were the best during that era, and so to have gone up and measured yourselves against the best, and we weren't quite at their level, but we sure gave it everything we had. So I'm proud of the team that we had, the effort. We didn't roll over. They had to earn it, and they stepped up and did it.
And to be fair, like most teams don't make the finals. So few teams even get to that point. There's tons of teams that haven't even made it there. That's an impressive feat on its own. The next season, a little bit tougher for you. You were struggling with an injury as that season went on. When did you realize that there was something wrong? Something was going on there?
It was early in that year. So I knew something wasn't right. And I tried to fight through it for as long as I could, and got about halfway through the season, and then wasn't able to continue. So I knew things weren't right. I had some issues, and then I had to start a new chapter in my life, and that was doing radio with Tom McGinnis, the brilliant play-by-play person for the Sixers, and I got to be by his side, being his analyst for 5 seasons, and nothing will take the place of playing. But if you can't play, I was really happy to stay a part of the organization, stay a part of the Sixer family, to work with Tom, travel, and be one of the voices of the Sixers. So that was a great way to stay involved with a wonderful organization that treated me extremely well throughout my time in Philadelphia. So that was the start of the next chapter of my life.
What was and if you're not comfortable as much talking about it, we can skip right over it. But take me back to the moment when you found out, that this was going to be how your career ended. I mean, you'd been having such a great progression, going from more minutes to a starter. You had some great playoff runs. Do you remember what that moment was like?
I remember it was really tough. I was really. I think there's been times when I've battled with confidence. If I was when I was a 10th grader, I think the coach said, "Hey, we're missing some bodies. Can you come up and play varsity for a couple of games?" And I was thinking, like, no, I mean I did, but I didn't think I was good enough to play varsity. I didn't think I was big enough, strong enough, experienced enough. So I was sort of intimidated. And then I become a varsity, or grade 12, 11, grade 11 player. I realized I can do this. I am good enough. And then I get to University of Washington, and I don't think I'm, good enough to play in the Pac-10, coming from Winnipeg. And then over time, the coaches could tell that I was good enough, that I had the tools. I needed to believe in myself. By the time I'm maybe redshirting really helped. So I think after a year of playing against these guys and doing well in practice, and I realized that I can play at this level. And then at some point, I think it was probably I had a double against two of the Fab Five. So Jimmy King and Ray Jackson were still at Michigan. We lost the game by one, and I think I had 12 points and 10 rebounds maybe as a sophomore. So I started thinking if I can have a double against a couple members of this Michigan team that are Fab Five guys, if I continue to improve, maybe I have a chance to play at the next level. So I think that was the first time that I thought that maybe I could make it. And then I think as a junior, I don't know if I was a sophomore or junior, I had 38 points against 38 points in a collegiate game. James Madison. I think I went 15 for 18 from the field and 8 for 10 from the line. I thought, okay, well maybe I can play the next level. So I started to believe myself. So my point is, and then I get to the NBA, and then I feel like maybe I don't belong here. So what I'm trying to say is, right as my injury happened, I had gotten to the point where I believed that I belonged in the NBA. I had gone from being someone that I thought I'd be on the injured reserve to being maybe the 10th, 11th, 12th man, to being a starter for the Nets, to being a starter on a team that went to the NBA Finals, to averaging 9.6 points a game as a net for a season. So I think just getting better and believing in myself, and having Jason Kidd believe in me, and having Steve Nash believe in me in the summer, and then going back to Philadelphia, and then believing I went away. I left the Sixers. I became a starter. That team was successful. I was a part of that. Let's do that again. So the irony is that I was really believing in myself at the same time that my body failed me, and that was the end of my career, right when I felt like not only can I play at this level, I had really sort of developed a more confident outside shooting touch. And so I've always been a high percentage shooter, and part of that is shot selection, and I would stay in close. But obviously, if people are going to push you out, and you want to have more aspects to your game, and you want to have more weapons. And so I was much more confident with a 15-footer. But all of a sudden, I'm not able to play anymore. So I felt like I've just learned to shoot from the outside, and now I can't play this game anymore. And it was bothersome.
Yeah, how do you even begin to kind of process that? Was there anyone you kind of leaned on during that time?
My wife, my parents, coaches, friends. My whole support network, but mostly my wife. Just been through everything, and it was a tough time to get to the NBA, to feel like you belong, to feel like you can play at that level, and then to not be able to do this game anymore that you've done for your whole life, and it's just not an option anymore.
One of the things you did move on to talk about something a little bit more fun was pinball, which we can, for people who are watching online, can see on YouTube, can see behind you is the pinball machines. Tell me about when that started. When did you start to get into pinball?
Well, I think I was probably 10. So I was born in '76, and back then there weren't a lot of gaming options in the home, or I guess there was arcades and things like that, and I just thought the arcade was the coolest place, the most fun place. So I liked things of leisure, whether it was a roller skating rink. Roller skating had a pinball machine. Ice skating rink sometimes had them in the lobby. The bowling alley had pinball machines. So all of these leisure activities that I liked to do when I wasn't playing basketball had a pinball machine or pinball machines there. I used to, drink Slurpees a lot. 7-Elevens often had a pinball machine. So get a Slurpee, play some pinball. Go roller skating, play some pinball. So it was everywhere I wanted to be. And then when I was in net and we had a house in New Jersey, I met someone, asked him what they did for a living, and he said, we supply operators and businesses with pinball and arcade machines. And I said, I've always loved pinball. What are the chances you would sell a couple games to a guy like me? And next thing you know, the truck pulled up and dropped off 3 pinball machines, and that was just the beginning. So I realized you could have them in your home, and that's a good chance to get better and improve. It'd be like having a hoop in your front yard and just being able to go and practice. all the time. And so this is a really fun thing to practice.
Yeah, yeah, that is a fun practice for sure. How many pinball machines would you say you have now?
Oh, probably 60 to 70, something like that. So I've been collecting for 20 years, and there's some really great games that are being made right now. There's some great companies. Many of them are staffed by, I would call myself a pinball enthusiast, and I've been competing since probably 2006, 2007. And many of the people that now work in these companies are, people that I competed against, people that love this game, and they're taking their skill sets, whether it's playfield design or programming or audio, and bringing them to a company that they care passionately about. And therefore, the products that are coming out of these companies are made by people who deeply care about the quality of them, the fun factor, how they look, how they sound, how they play, how balanced they are. So there's some absolutely incredible machines coming. So to be in this industry and to be in this hobby and have been in it for so long, and to see the kind of cool things and the whether it's Stranger Things, you take some cool shows that are nostalgic but also new, or a band like Led Zeppelin or Guns N' Roses. I mean, you take your favorite band, and if there's a pinball machine, it's just makes all the the cool things about a certain IP, kind of brings them to life in a really fun box and package.
Do you have a favorite machine that you own?
The Big Lebowski machine behind me there. I don't know if you can see it. It might be right behind my head
Yeah.
there. So I love that movie. It's made by a company called Dutch Pinball in the Netherlands, and I feel like Barry, the guy in charge over there, fell in love with pinball for the same reasons that I did. There was a real sweet spot in the '90s. Kind of, it's one of the golden eras of pinball, where Bally Williams were making some of the best games ever made. And I think when he designed this game, this company, I think it was kind of an ode and a love letter to that era of pinball. And so I think all the things that he liked about those games that I liked ended up in a box with themes and call outs and things from the Big Lebowski. So that's a great one. If you can find one of those to play, I highly recommend it.
Is there any carryover between pinball and basketball, or is there any kind of comparable skills?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. Trying to put into words, why this game is so fascinating to me. I would recommend to any viewers that want to dive into it. There's a movie that came out maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, called Pinball: The Man Who Saved the Game. All about I have these friends, the Sharp brothers, and it's the story of their father, Roger Sharp, and how he testified in front of New York City Hall, in front of politicians, to show that this is a game of skill, that this is not a slot machine, it's not a game of chance, it's not gambling, it's for amusement, and it's a skill game. So there's actually, somebody made a good analogy to golf, where the rules are pretty simple. In golf, you've got this equipment, but every course is different, and so pinball is kind of like that too. You pretty much always have flippers, but the course is different, the machine is different. And in terms of basketball, I think there's actually a lot of similarities in terms of, you have a ball in this case, and you have a target. In basketball, obviously that goal doesn't change; it's always there and it doesn't move. And you just want to put that ball in the hoop as many times as you want. In pinball, imagine if they moved the rim around. At the first quarter, it's over here, and now it's over here. And so modern pinball directs you through lights. Those lights show you where to shoot. So it'd be like, shoot on the hoop here, now shoot this hoop, now shoot this hoop. And then sometimes you're not open, in the sense that, there's all about angles. And there's certain shots that are, if you're here and the hoop is on that side, you might need to pass it to a teammate. So in that case, you might need to get the ball to a different flipper. So there's some similarities in trying to, find the open man in a sense, or at least get the ball to an area where you can see the basket. So there's probably, and there's passes. There's something called post pass, which is obviously a basketball term, but it's one way to give the ball some inertia. And if you have the ball in the right flipper, it's a little technique to get the ball onto the other flipper. So all of a sudden you can get the ball where you need to go. So people are really surprised at the skills you can develop, the skills you can improve on. And obviously accuracy is huge in basketball. If you're Steph Curry and you're the most, one of the most accurate shooters in basketball ever, you're going to be successful. And pinball is the same. If you work on it and you decide if I flip the flipper now and the ball goes up that ramp and I don't miss, I'm going to get points with a guaranteed safely return. It's like having a rebounder. You hit your shot and the ball comes back, and then you just repeat it over and over. And so some of the tournament players are really adept at being, and then some of it is physical, a little bit maybe more like rebounding. It's nudging the machine when you determine, hey, if that, if you see in basketball the ball's going out of bounds, if you watch it, that ball's going out of bounds. But if you have a chance to go save it and move that ball, and that's what you do when you're nudging the machine and you're bumping it, is you're trying to change the future. You're seeing that ball is going to drain, and I want to keep it in play. So there's a physical aspect to the game as well, an accuracy aspect. So it's, I find it endlessly fascinating, and I don't think I'll ever stop playing, and I don't really want to.
That is really interesting. I did not know, and I'll be the first to admit my pinball knowledge is lacking. I'm learning a lot now, which is great. I didn't know you could nudge the machine. That was even a legal thing you could do in terms of a game. I thought it was just some people they're trying to make it work. But that's really interesting. And you've played in some pretty tough competition in your pinball career as well, right?
I have, yeah. I've played. I feel like I've played at the highest level. I've played against some of the best players in the world. We actually, in this very basement here, we hosted the World Championships of Pinball in 2012. So this was one of the areas. We put some more games in the garage and in the outbuilding. And we had 64 players from 12 countries around the world come and compete in my basement and garage, and it was very surreal. I didn't do particularly well, but it was the World Championships, and in order to qualify for it, I had to do very well at a qualifying tournament. And at this tournament, there were 6 of the world's top 10 ranked players were there. At the time, I was ranked 237th in the world. And in order to qualify for the World Championships that I was hosting, it wasn't like the Olympics where the host nation gets an automatic bid. I had to earn it. And so I had about 2 months to get from 237th in the world to about top 100. And I ended up, winning that tournament. So in the first round of the playoffs, I defeated who was the number 1 ranked player at that time, and then I defeated the 4th ranked player in the world, and then the 12th, and the 22nd, and then I beat a 3-time world champion, and then I beat him again. And so, at least at that time, 10 years ago, I felt like I could play with anyone in the world. Some of the kids that are coming up now, I call them kids. They're the children of some of the people that I've been competing against. They've taken it to the next level. Hand-eye coordination, knowledge of rules, accuracy, all of those things. I can no longer compete with the top players in the world, but I sure have a good time trying. And there is an element of luck in there. So sometimes a weaker player can defeat. If you're playing, I'm not a chess player, but my understanding is a stronger chess player is going to win most of the time. In billiards, I think a stronger billiard player is going to go most of the time. And those games are very skill-based. Pinball is also skill-based, but there is an element of luck in here where it is possible to beat someone that's quote-unquote better than your pinball. And I think that's partly what makes the game so compelling.
You mentioned the kids of people who have been very great pinball players. Have your children taken any interest in either pinball or basketball so far?
Little bit of both. My son, both my kids are pretty good pinball players. My daughter hasn't been playing as much of late. She's taken to volleyball. My son and I have been playing something called split flipper, where I'll take the right flipper, he'll take the left flipper, and it'll be an activity that we do together. Something that we try and sort of act as one, and we communicate. And I would never let him at his age watch Game of Thrones, but playing the pinball machine is a different story. And so we played the game together until we ruled the Westeros and became we end up sitting on the throne because there's a little bit of a video game aspect to these games where there's kind of an ending. I don't know if you're a video game player, but there tends to be a finish or an ending or a boss stage. And in pinball, for the last 30 years, we've called those wizard modes. And so if you do this, this, and this, and you shoot, you progress through all of these missions, you get to the ending, and it's known as a wizard mode. And so he and I played it until we did it, and then a little bit like me in video games back then, if I beat a game and I got to the end, I didn't really want to play it anymore. I wanted a new challenge, and so He's sort of lost interest, and he, like a lot of kids of this generation, he prefers his console games.
Mm.
But I would put him up against other 14-year-olds with his pinball skills. So he's got the touch. He only has so much free time, and he tends to spend it elsewhere. But it took me a while. I wasn't always into pinball when I was a kid, and so I'm not giving up on them. And it'll be here when they're ready for them.
Now I think you need to combine those two loves of pinball and basketball and make a Canada basketball pinball machine. I think that's what the world needs next.
It's not a bad idea. I have an NBA pinball machine, and on the back glass it has great players like Shaquille O'Neil and Allen Iverson, and I think Kevin Garnett's up there, and maybe Paul Pierce and Dwight Howard, and a friend of mine, for a birthday present, he talked to another friend of ours who's a graphic designer, and he took the files and moved them apart, and then put a Todd MacCulloch up there. And so there's one Stern NBA machine that has a Todd MacCulloch on the back glass there, and I don't belong with those guys, but it's kind of cool to be on that back glass with those players, and you shoot the ball into the hoop, and a magnet grabs it, and there's anyway, it's a pretty cool game. So basketball and pinball, I think they go pretty well together.
I'm gonna go back at you at that. I'm gonna say you do belong there. You played there. You were with those guys. You were going up against those guys. There's no question you belong there, and I'm very confident they would pale in comparison when it comes to pinball if they went up against you in that.
My record's pretty good so far, especially against former teammates. So I try and get everybody into the game, and it sticks with some people, and it's something I love to share with people. And whether they just have fun over here for a little while, or whether they go on to start their collection, it's all good. But I kind of just want to share with people what I love about this game so much, and some people are surprised at how interesting they are when someone takes the time to break it down a little bit, and they're a little more complex than you might think on the surface.
Okay, well now I got to ask. I was just about done, but I got to ask, of your teammates who have played pinball, who do you think is the best that you've seen so far?
Kyle Korver was good. I loaned him a machine for a while, so he had one in his basement to be able to practice on. So if you're a great shooter like he is, you obviously have good hand-eye coordination, and I feel like that translates. So he was an excellent pinball player. He's good at everything. He's a natural.
Yeah, that checks out. I'm not totally surprised to hear that. I'm not totally surprised. Todd, this was really a great time chatting with you, and I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to talk to me about yourself, your career. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for having me on, and go Canada. It's gonna be a fun summer watching those guys on the court.